That's Blancmange, Living on the Ceiling. I haven't heard that for a while. I haven't heard this guy for a while either. This is Cliff Purvis. He's going to join me on the show today. If I can get Cliff. It's good afternoon, Cliff. How are you doing, mate? I'm going to try and get Cliff. If he's there.
Can you hear me?
Hello, Cliff. How are you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine. How are you?
I've got you. We had a bit of a problem there, just because we had something come up on the screen and I had to deal with it and then get back to you. So it's just, we're ready to go. How do we find you today, Cliff? Is it nice and cosy where you are? We had the snow here all last night. I don't know what you...
Yes, absolutely. It started snowing yesterday afternoon. We had a lovely snowfall overnight. The temperature's risen a bit now, so it's melting. It's rapidly turning into slush. But I was out literally just in the door, actually. I'd take my camera out just to get some shots.
Good.
Of nature and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd also get the benefits of taking a wee hour out for a stroll.
Well, you need to get fresh air. It doesn't matter how cold it is. You just wear the clothes accordingly, don't you? That's Scotland for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And if we've lived in Scotland more than a week, mm-hmm. we know that we need to carry all manner of clothing with us.
Exactly. Well, Cliff, it's been a busy day news-wise. There's this thing. I spoke to Alison briefly about it, but I think she was wanting to talk about other things. And that's perfectly fair. George Osborne's put out a column in the Evening Standard about going back to 2014. I don't know if you've seen that one.
I haven't yet, no.
Oh, right. Well, I'll tell you what it is. I'll try and get it up. It's about 2014, and he writes about how to keep Scotland at bay without giving us independence. And it's very, very telling about let's call them the enemy. The Unionist cabal down south. He says, the worst evening I ever spent in Down Street Easy, September 18th, 2014, sitting in a small wood panelling dining room, waiting for the results of the Scottish independence referendum coming through. And he was really scared because he thought he'd lose it. And he thought they were going to lose Scotland. What does that language tell you for a start? It's not theirs to lose, is it?
It's not. We're supposed to be in a union. It's supposed to be a union of equals. They long ago dropped any pretense as to being a union of equals.
Yeah.
I keep harping back to the Act of Union, although I tend not to use it in any debate because it has been quite legally amended.
Yes.
Since the original signing.
Mm-hmm.
And like it or not, it has been legally amended. Mm-hmm. The Act of Union was brought about by corruption, both bribery and implied violence.
Yes.
I think it was Queen Anne was on the throne then,
mm-hmm.
if I remember rightly. Yes, so we were only brought into the Union as such to stabilise the northern flank, so they could go off terrorising the rest of the world. Basically.
Well, I'll hold you on that point. Stick there, because what he goes on to say is Scotland is an altogether different matter, because he's talking about getting Ireland, that's gone, who cares? It's history, our history. So he's talking about our history with Scotland. Its contribution, he's talking about Scotland here, our contribution to the world through its literature and art, philosophy, exploration and art is our contribution as well. So he's claiming it for England too. Its departure, with no disrespect to the Welsh, he writes, would represent the end of the United Kingdom. The rest of the world would instantly see that we were no longer a front-rank power or even in a second row. We would instead be one of the great majority of countries who are on the receiving end of the decisions made by a few, subject to the values of others.
Well, isn't that what we've been in Scotland for the past 313 years?
Well, here's the thing, Cliff. I'll put the ball in the tee, you hit it off.
Yeah.
Well, you couldn't make this up, but it's really poor journalism for a start. It takes nothing into consideration from another side's point of view. And you know what? The whole Brexit language has been about taking back sovereignty, taking back control. You could equally apply that to Scotland, but when it does get put to Scotland, oh no, that's just those vile cybernats, etc., etc.
Absolutely. I love the other phrase they're now starting to use, to greater effect or greater use, I should say, which is separatist.
Yes.
Which I have absolutely no problem at all with, because I really do want to be separate from Westminster.
But Cliff, there's another reason for that. It ties in with Basque separatists when they were fighting and killing, and it's to bring in a murkier side to nationalism, the ethnic side.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's why they also mix it up with the struggle and the struggles, the war across in Ireland.
Aye.
Nationalists. They're definitely trying to murky the war to try and portray Seekers of Independence as being these nasty, violent people. And I would just point them to any community policeman that's been on any march that has been held by an independence organisation.
Correct.
To cast the police on the scene, how nasty and vile we are.
Indeed, absolutely. I'm just going to carry on reading this because it is really interesting. It gets better and better, believe it or not.
Right, that wasn't the good bit.
Oh no, there's more. Oh, no. He says those who want to keep the UK together need to respond with new, powerful arguments against, guess what, separation. After all, hasn't the EU? Now listen to this. Hasn't the EU negotiations shown Scots that the whip hand lies with the larger, more powerful bloc? Here he goes into territory again. Liberal Democrat territory, because they've been parroting this. If you think it's tough leaving a union of 28 years, what about leaving a union of 300 years?
Oh, grief.
Where'd you start on that one?
That's a difficult one, because presumably he is still maybe not he's no longer a minister or an MP, but presumably he is still a Conservative and Colonial Party.
Yes.
And haven't they been advocating that we held all the ACES, the deal would be done on the back of a cigarette packet over a cup of tea some afternoon, some wet Wednesday in Brussels?
Aye.
No.
But the thing is,
it's a two-way street. That's what it's shown us.
Yeah.
The extraction from the EU has shown that it is definitely a two-way street. The English consumer, or the RUK consumer, call it as you may, will still want water. They'll still want electricity.
Correct.
They will still want Aberdeen Angus, and they will still want Scottish lobster, Scottish grouse, Scottish salmon, etc. Yeah. And there is stuff we will still want for them.
Yes.
So no, it's Project Fear again kicking off.
Again, but I think that's all he's got left, to be honest. But this thing that you're leaving one union to go back into another union, well, hold on, we're going back into the European Union as a nation, an independent nation, not a devolved state in this present union. That's the difference.
Yes. We will have a voice in Parliament. We'll have a veto. All right, after consultation, then that veto, to my understanding, can then get overruled by a majority of the other countries.
Aye.
But at least we have got a braking mechanism, whereas all we have now, take the vote in the Commons the other week, the other day there, where there was, 6 or 8 Tory MPs rebelled. Not one of them was a Scottish MP.
I know. Was that the £20 universal credit? Was that the...
That's the one indeed, yes.
Yeah, the Tories were absent, saying that it was an opposition bench motion that doesn't count anyway, which it doesn't really, but it shows the direction of travel that you want to go in, and you should vote accordingly for your constituents on these matters, but they didn't. Just shows you what's happening. Surely SNP claims of easy trade deals, frictionless borders and a rosy future for Aberdeen fishing and Edinburgh finance can now easily be demolished. This is George Osborne writing this yesterday.
Right, yeah.
So, Aberdeen fishing, take that one.
Yeah, well, that's already destroyed.
Aye.
Aberdeen sold their soul to the oil industry. I think you'll find he's meaning Peterhead or Fraserburgh.
Yes, indeed. Absolutely.
Yeah, because that's where the major catches are landed. Then you flick up to Shetland, I think, is the next one. Then, indeed, Scrabster up where I'm from is also mentioned on the landing grounds.
That's right.
Which is where Shetland and the oil have actually done quite well. They've been entirely sensible. They've half their harbour. Half is for fish landing, half is for the oil industry. So they've still got something to fall back on.
Yes.
So the fishing industry, is run by 5 families. It sounds like a mafia, and to all accounts, it operates like one as well. They now can see the error, and let's be polite, the error of their ways with the extraction from the EU. They were always going to get chucked under that EU bus.
Of course they were.
By the Tory party, because they get very little votes.
That's
the votes they get from the fishing industry in Scotland doesn't really matter anything in the big scheme of things.
Correct.
The Edinburgh finance thing, well, just look at all the finance companies that are bugging out of London.
I know.
And are re-establishing themselves in Frankfurt on Main in Germany. Now that was the finance capital of West Germany, and as it was. And there's all the infrastructure ready to rock and roll, and that's why they've bugged out there. I think there was a bit of competition between them and Paris. To get, which is healthy competition. That's up to them guys to organise.
Of course, that's right. But don't forget Glasgow, Cliff, because Barclays are building a massive new bank there, a new holding bank on the Clyde, and we've got Virgin are coming up here as well to relocate.
Yes. Now, why are they doing that?
Well, I wonder why. Do they see something that maybe we don't? Yes.
Yes, of course they do. This is what I guess you call capital projects. And they do not put that type of investment into a sugary peg. Well, George Osborne, he's gone on about. It gets a bit dangerous here because he goes. The only way you won't lose one is to don't have one, a referendum. And Boris Johnson's right. The SNP will be in full cry, but so what? Domestic opposition has already evaporated with the Labour leader there, I take it means Scotland, resigning last week. As Tony Blair says, no one has been able to mount a fight since Ruth Davidson left the stage. Blah. So what he's saying there, Cliff, is just say no. You don't need to give them it. They have to get a majority in the House of Commons, which they'll never get. So Scotland is safe in the Union. He's shown a complete lack of understanding of what world opinion can bring to bear in domestic politics.
Yeah.
We, as I mentioned, I think on my rant this morning, we are now getting more and more world recognition. It's been seen now not so much as a fly-by-night idea, the idea of a minority. We are on 19th Street.
Yep. Polls. Yeah.
Opinion polls showing a majority for independence at various percentages. And that has been picked up worldwide.
Of course it has.
They cannot. And remember, we are a totally separate union compared to what the Spanish have within their constitution.
Yes.
Yeah. We signed on for this union, which means we can sign off for it.
Correct. Absolutely. Even on this radio station, Cliff, we've got listeners wanting to hear about Scottish politics from Germany, Denmark, Ukraine, Canada, Australia, Botswana.
Right.
Yep. People are really keen to hear what's happening with Scotland.
If you just hold on the Ukraine, if you think about the fall of communism, with when the generals took over and placed Gorbachev in isolation down in Crimea.
Yes.
How quickly that happened.
Yes.
And then the Ukraine very quickly declared independence.
I know.
And Russia, as it was then the Russian Federation, dealt with all the nuclear weapons on Ukrainian soil and withdrew them quite quickly. Okay, they didn't tidy up Chernobyl,
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but the nuclear weapons in the Ukraine were lifted out quite quickly. Mm-hmm. Exactly what will happen with us. If you want them, come and get them. Otherwise, we hand them over to the UN.
Well, the same thing happened at Estonia, Lithuania, and Latvia. Sorry, when they were going for their independence, a lot of the Latvians, Estonians, and Lithuanians actually, most of them spoke Russian because of the amount of boats that were on in the waters of these countries. But when they started agitating for independence, it happened quite quickly. Just because that's what they wanted. And Iceland actually came along and stood by them. Iceland. And this put the... I don't know what happened, but it just made the whole thing crumble down. And these three countries now are laughing. They're absolutely laughing. They've got the best IT systems in the world, bar none. They gave us Skype when it went back in the day. So things can crumble quite easily. When world pressure is put upon you.
Absolutely. Berlin Wall's a classic.
Yep, Berlin. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a really good one.
I was stationed out in Germany when that whole scenario was playing out.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just amazing to watch the German news channels.
Yeah. It was almost as if something positive was happening, you know?
It was, absolutely. I would have loved to have heard there's an iconic moment when the wall gets ripped down,
mm-hmm.
And there's a handshake between the East German border guard and the West German policeman.
Aye.
I would have loved to have heard that conversation.
Oh yes, indeed. But I think that's the thing. George Osborne and his cabal of Etonians. They can put their finger in the tsunami, the wall that's holding back the tsunami, but they can't stop it. And the Westminster government is not sacrosanct over the people of Scotland. The people of Scotland are sovereign, not any parliament. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and yes, we've been with that 2014 referendum.
Mm-hmm.
We came out the box.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And we are not going back in it. And the majority now are saying we are not going back in it. They can huff and they can puff. Very reminiscent of what was going on with India, leading up to their independence.
Mm-hmm.
And of course that was so very, very badly botched by Mountbatten and Co.
Yeah.
When they suddenly gave them a year's notice or something like that. And the reason they pushed for the division, as was the India, West and East Pakistan, now Bangladesh, was that they knew, the establishment knew that they would not get a port in India for their warships.
Aye.
So they wanted a separate state set up where they could then supposedly have influence on. And that's why they were so keen in setting up the East and West Pakistan.
Yes.
Gandhi himself did not want that.
No, he didn't. No.
So all the huffing and puffing that's coming out of the establishment just now has been seen before. There's absolutely nothing that's happening to Scotland that hasn't happened to a country prior to us seeking our independence.
I think one of the things about independence is, for a lot of people, Ruth Wishart's been on about this, Leslie Riddick's bumping her gums about it as well. Things are happening too slowly. It's get a move on. Nicola Sturgeon's too uber cautious, to quote her. Do you think there's an agitation on the ground that the politicians aren't doing enough just now?
Oh, there definitely is. Classic military speak, it's mission creep. It's where you're deployed and there's no end to it. Normal deployment is you're out there for 6 months, so you know your start and finish day.
Yes.
But sometimes you go out. 30 years ago today, I was out in the Gulf. As the build up to the first Gulf War. I mean, the air war had started, but we had no idea when the ground offensive would go in. We had no idea when we were coming home. So you get that mission creep where you get frustrated.
Aye.
And I can really appreciate that. I totally understand how people can feel that way, but I just would urge, please, let's trust the leadership. They have got us to this stage. We are fighting a pandemic, and I know other countries have had elections during the pandemic, etc., etc. We're not due one until May, and that's going ahead. Yeah, I have not heard anybody say it's not going ahead. I've heard people from the unionist side say it shouldn't, and that in itself is a good indicator of how worried they are.
It really is.
I would really ask people to have trust in their leadership. I'm ex-military. I mean, I didn't always understand what the bigger plan was. I wasn't privy to the secrets of it. And
yes, of course.
It didn't have to be. I just knew that there would be one. And the leadership had got to a point that I felt comfortable at. And I certainly feel comfortable where we are. I would love independence to be tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's not going to be that.
No, it's not. I think what a lot of people are agitating for is a date, some kind of fixed point. You're right. This mission creep it's not good for the nerves. I think if we got the independence dates fixed and sorted, then we can all plan towards it, and then we could get the wagons rolling, if you like. Until we get that, we still think we're blowing in the wind a wee bit.
Yeah, and it hasn't helped that we're also been in lockdown, so we haven't had our marches and our rallies, which are always
that's a good point, Cliff.
Because that's sort of then bracketed things. You know, you're doing a march and you're getting a little bit frustrated with things, but then another march would come along, so you're meeting up with people, and we do our marvellous demonstration for Scottish independence. Then we go home and then we aim for the next one. So it did break the sort of the calendar months down a little bit.
It did, but don't you think coronavirus has alerted us to the different styles of government from UK level and at Scottish level? And people are going, you know what? This is what we want. We want more of this. And looking at Nicola Sturgeon, 74% approval rates. That's off the scale, to be honest.
You don't get that.
No.
What are we now? 5 months away from an election?
No.
That just does not happen.
I know. So, there's people who'll be listening to this from foreign places and wondering what the hell is going on in Scotland. But as you say, Cliff, we've got to ga canny on this. We can't just jump into it and come against brick walls at this point and brick walls at that point and stubborn governments at that point. We've got to do it carefully and managed properly. And we've got to actually ask ourselves, what do we want and when do we want it? You know, and how do we get it? Because there's so many disparate groups. I can tell you, Martin Keaton's is away doing this Section 30 thing in the courts. You've got all under one banner. You've got Alison, who was on our Yes Networks. You've got Fergus Murray, who was on Friday. He's when his RIC, the Radical Independence campaign. Everybody's scrambling on the ground, working like mad.
Yeah, which is good.
It's amazing.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic, and it shows that when the unionists turn around and say it's all driven by the SNP, it shows that's the very first lie.
Yes.
But in that is great, because the unionists and their supporters, especially on social media, are chipping away at the SNP. They're chipping away at the SNP leadership. Now, those boys and girls get paid enough money to look after themselves.
Correct.
And bat for themselves as well.
Yes.
And what they've actually neglected is the Yes movement. They cannot fathom out that there's a heck of a difference. I mean, take the wee group that I'm admining for, if such a word exists.
Yes, admin. Yeah.
Yeah, the Veterans for Scottish Independence 2.0 group. We are not a political group, although we have our politics.
Yes.
So each member of that group has their own individual politics, may or may not be a member of the SNP. But we are, at this moment in time, chatting away to the SNP Armed Forces and Veterans Forum, trying to get things online there, so that when the SNP launch the manifesto, then there's going to be this thing for the armed forces, for the veterans, to realise that they are not seen as being purely a tool for Westminster.
Yeah.
There is votes to be won from the armed forces community and from the veterans community.
Of course there are. There's votes to be picked up right, left and centre. We've had conservative restaurant owners now looking at the furlough schemes passing by, the restaurants are shut, they're re-evaluating things radically, and they're coming over to talk about independence now. Now, that wouldn't have happened before coronavirus, I don't think. But now, it's kind of settled people into thinking, what do I need from this life? What do I want?
The pandemic has demonstrated that Scotland can manage its affairs.
Correct. And Alison made the point, who was on earlier. She said that Nicola Sturgeon's always had to be proven the point to people, actually proven again and again and again, because that's what they've done since their inception. The SNP have always had to prove something that was good for the people. Boris Johnson, on the other hand, has never had to prove anything. He's just there, and he's got the world at his feet, and he talks and talks and talks. He is not designed to give empathy, sympathy, clarity when he needs it most. Nicola Sturgeon does.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, we've seen the demise of one populist leader, and that's happening at 5 o'clock this afternoon.
Yeah, Donald.
Across the Atlantic there. And with his demise, what we will see then, I think, is a very different attitude being sort of directed towards Downing Street, because pretty much Boris Johnson and the President of Brazil are the only two left on that one.
Correct.
Yeah.
Bandaras, I think his name, I can't remember.
Yeah.
It seems like we went through a spat of reality TV people coming and being representative of people's countries. Ukraine had a comedian. He got in there. We've got Boris Johnson, who was on Have I Got News For You? You name it. He was on every damn thing you could get. And look where he is now.
Yeah.
He's just a populist figure.
Yeah, and you actually hit the nail on the head there, Norrie, when you said the reality TV. Yeah, we seem to have grown up with reality TV figures being hyperinflated as to what their attitudes and capabilities are. Yeah, and okay, some of these people are multi-millionaires. Fine, you've earned your money. You have to have a certain amount of ability to do that. But just how does that qualify you to be a politician?
Well, exactly. I mentioned about Alistair Jack walking down Downing Street. Just because he's got a nice tailored suit and a tie and a nice iron shirt, carrying a briefcase, doesn't mean to say he's a decent politician.
Yes.
Don't be fooled by what you see. But these people just take power and they milk what they can get from it, and they don't care about who's underneath them. That's the bottom line.
It's a big club.
It's a big club. Yes.
The Westminster setup is nothing more than an extension of the public school debating chamber, leading on, if you're good enough, to a knighthood, possibly into the Lords, but certainly with a decent pension. Yeah, and that's all it is. Don't rock the boat, keep everything steady. Every single alteration to Westminster's the way they vote, who they allow to vote, has to be dragged out of them. Even the concept of the NHS. The Tory party fought against that and voted against it at every single turn. So what makes you think they're suddenly going to be in favour of the NHS?
I know. We should really get angry, but I'm just laughing at it now because it happens all the time. I was watching, Cliff, I'm sure you were as well, the fishermen down in London trying to make some kind of confusion and some kind of protest, which I think they've done really well. They put on the side of their lorries how Brexit was damaging their business. But yet, not so long ago, Nigel Farage and Kate Hoey were in a boat with a lot of England, and some from Scotland as well. The fishing community all around Britain were on the Thames saying, let's go for Brexit. So it sticks in my craw a bit when they're coming up complaining, and I know it's the trawling fleets, not the sea fish groups that are getting the brunt of this. But part of me thinks, well, we told you so.
There is that, Norrie, absolutely. But that's where we can
rise above it.
Perhaps, yes, absolutely. Show that we are different from the Westminster model.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay, you made a mistake. How about coming over to our side and whacking in a few pounds for the cause of independence type of thing, instead of your local Tory. Mm-hmm. So, if we can learn from mistakes, and we are a species that if we learn from mistakes, we will evolve.
Well, you're probably right there, Cliff. I'm just looking at pictures of Peterhead Fish Market, absolutely empty.
Yeah.
The boats are taking their fish to Denmark. It's still a long process to get them checked, identified, healthily checked, all that kind of stuff. But there's no market.
Well, it's a shorter process than landing it in UK or landing it in Scotland.
Yeah.
And then having it drive it down to the channel ports to get across on the channel ferries.
Correct.
Which is another highlight of what this marvellous union has done to us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All the infrastructure sitting down in the southeast of England. We have no capable ferry terminals.
That's right. We don't.
In Scotland.
No.
Yeah.
Even if somebody wanted to, it's not in our remit either to. I think there was somebody it was a Dutch company who wanted to put a ferry service right across to Rosyth.
There was one operating a couple of years ago. And me and the good lady were thinking it went to Belgium and landed in.
Yeah. Can't remember. Was it Bruges? I can't remember where
Bruges.
It was. Bruges, was it?
Bruges, yeah. Because me and the good lady were looking at that, and then it goes down before we even got booked on it. Mm-hmm. And that was the ferry terminal at Rosyth.
Aye.
So yeah, there is some rundown infrastructure in Scotland that we could use, and you're absolutely right. It's this whole thing about is it in the remit for the Scottish Parliament or is it the remit of Westminster? Mm-hmm. I can't possibly see where the Scottish Parliament would get the finance.
I know.
From with everything else that's going on. I mean, I know they have done a sterling job in managing the budget.
Yeah, Kate.
And they've made some mistakes along the way. Of course they have. The government always made, always. And and I'm not one of these that puts, I don't think anybody actually with any sense is going to put any government on a pedestal and bow down to them.
No.
But I would say for given the levers we have control of,
mm-hmm.
I think that since we've had the SNP government, I think it's been an absolutely fantastic job for Scotland.
Well, I think most people agree with you because most people will be voting for them again to give them another term in office after 14 years. That's unprecedented.
And this is where the sort of the hardcore unionists love throwing it's a one-party state. and you just turn around and say, yes, so we have two completely different voting systems for our parliament.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's set up that way so there is no single party gets a majority.
Well, I've got a couple of questions, Cliff. First one is on the Labour leadership in Scotland. Richard Leonard has gone, the invisible man, because nobody recognised him. And that's worse than being hated, because at least people know you to hate you. But he was always conflating what was devolved and what was reserved in the Scottish Parliament of all places.
Yeah,
he couldn't make up. I don't know if that was deliberate, if he was being mischievous or ignorant.
No, that was a deliberate ploy by him. He used to mention individual cases.
Yeah.
And it's very much similar to what Lord Haw did during the Second World War.
Mm-hmm.
You mention individual things, and you're sitting there,
mm-hmm.
He does it on live telly, and you're sitting there thinking, wow, he's really got his finger on the pulse because he's talking about a specific thing.
Yeah.
How much accuracy was ever in his statements, no one could ever tell. I mean, the answer, standard answer to from the First Minister was, if you send that information
details
over, we'll look into it, type of thing.
Yeah.
But there was that, and also he I'm convinced he had to work to a script. If he came off script, then he, like Johnson, got himself confused.
Yes, he did, didn't he?
Yes.
And even if Nicola Sturgeon answered his first question complicitly, just absolutely completely, he would still try and dig his way. No, in fact, instead of digging out of a hole, he dug deeper into a hole.
Oh yeah, he couldn't think on his feet.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, okay, she's answered that question. Have I got a backup second question? No, I don't. I have a second question that leads on from my first question, even though it's already been answered.
Well, just coming through on my newsfeed here. This is foreign news are reporting on the Scottish Parliament today.
Right.
Ruth Davison's asking why the vaccination programme is lagging behind, and even they're going question mark. Vaccinations are not lagging behind in Scotland. Scotland has prioritised efforts in vaccinating care homes first. 90% care homes have been vaccinated. In England, it's way down to us at 20%. We're not lagging behind anyone. So
No.
even in the Scottish Parliament, here's the thing, Cliff, I've been banging on about this. If you're going to stand in that Parliament and lie, just blatantly lie, you should be 7 days out of there. That is just a lie. Get out. 7 days. You can't say that. That was just a load of mince.
Again, it goes back to the old way of debating, doesn't it? They don't look upon it as lying. They're expressing an opinion and all this type of stuff. I very much like you, Norrie. If it's a frying pan, it's a frying pan. Yeah. So yes, I think although we do have, I think, a better standard of control by the presiding officer as opposed to the speaker. Down in Westminster, I still think it's so heavily structured on the Westminster model.
It is
for debating. It's scandalous. I mean, if you're absolutely right. If I stood in front of somebody, I mean, my day job's teaching first aid. If I stood in front of somebody, right, and started waffling on about, do you do this, that, and the other, I'm very quickly out of a job. So why is it politicians are allowed to stand and deliberately try to undermine the government during the pandemic?
Aye.
One thing on the pandemic, Norrie, I'd just like to take an opportunity, if I may, to wish all the military guys and girls who have been mobilised in Scotland and across the UK. The best of luck and for them to stay safe.
Well, indeed, Cliff, because they're frontline workers right at the coal face, if you like, dealing with this issue, and it's not an easy task. We've just heard today that the BBC did a report, actually, it was quite a good one. Monklands Hospital, nurses are at breaking point. The beds are all full up, and there was actually one guy they interviewed with the mask on, the ventilator. He goes, if anyone thinks this coronavirus is made up or it's a scare story, there's 1 million people around the world dead because of it, and I can't breathe. And it was pitiful, Cliff, to watch him.
Oh, that's absolutely so
pitiful.
I mean, I'm not that easy to get annoyed or angry, but I do get really annoyed and angry when I read stuff about look at the death rates as a percentage. Well, you can look at the death rates in the First World War as battle casualties as a percentage, and it's not that high. But it was still an horrific 4 years.
I know. Really gets my dander as well. The other thing is that you've got Nigel Farage with his new party saying this is all a hoax. This is rubbish. We should be able to go in the pub, have our pint, and mix, and the fittest of us will survive.
That is your typical populist leader. He is so desperate to get a seat in Westminster and for his cronies up here to get their seats in our Parliament that he will play to the base. He will he will turn around and say, yes, I will open the pubs and I will give you jam sandwiches and the first pint is on the house type of thing. And he doesn't care that people will die from that because he will then be in power. Not in power, but he may well have a seat. And he is so desperate to get a seat in Westminster because that then will give his ego a little bit more foundation. And that, who's it? Michelle Valentine.
Oh, yeah. She's the leader of the Reform Party in Scotland.
Yeah, you know you must be in a bad place. Yeah, when your views are so far right of the Conservative and Unionist Party as is just now.
I know.
You have to go and join another party.
Exactly. This is the one that said there should be no NHS. If you can't afford it, you shouldn't have them. Referring to children, if you can't feed them, you don't need them. She said.
Yeah.
She's got, I don't know how many she's got, 6, and she relied on the NHS for every one of them.
Yeah. Well, we all do.
Aye.
Yeah, absolutely all do. Presumably, she has had an education, and a fairly decent one.
You would think so, Cliff, though, wouldn't you?
Yeah. So she's obviously then aware of European history circa the last 100 years.
Aye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, what she has spouted belongs in a book that was published in 1920. 100 years ago.
It's true. I mean, but do you not take the vote? Mike Russell, when he was giving his Brexit speech, and just after Christmas, I think it was, there was a debate in the Scottish Parliament, and he said, "Look, there's good people over there in the Conservative Party, but good people can be tainted by bad ideas." Do you think he's fair there, or are they good people with bad ideas, or have they been? I don't know. Murdo Fraser, he's been lured by the cash that you can get on the list seat.
I mean, call them good or bad people is delving into their character. I'd be certainly more happy, or better placed probably, calling them good or bad politicians.
Yeah, I know, but it was just Mike Russell was trying to be magnanimous about some good people.
What I think that Mike was probably trying to do there is get a split.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think so too. I think so.
There's wonderful ways of doing that.
Yes.
And I have actually said on a couple of occasions that come independence, we will need politicians from
all angles.
Yeah, because that way you get you get a balanced democracy.
Yes. And it doesn't matter, Cliff, does it, if a Conservative member backs you on your coronavirus bill because it's a good bill? He won't back it because he's got another ulterior method or way of thinking, and that's the union. Once that's gone, you might see a very good, able and working parliament, which isn't what we're getting just now, really.
No, it's so partisan. It's bipartisan. It's unbelievable. It's, anything that's put forward by the current Scottish government is automatically dismissed as rubbish.
Yeah.
First of all, by the Tory party, and then to a certain degree, the Labour. I believe the Lib Dems are still in there somewhere.
Oh yeah, whatever.
Yeah. But I mean, the vote last night or the night before? Last night, yesterday evening, in fact, it was that the vote on the security issues that was outvoted. That Scottish government don't want anything to do with the Conservatives' policy on the secret police.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, the only people that voted for that were the Tory party.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, Cliff, if Attila the Hun was sitting in Westminster, they'd still follow him and give him his backing. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't matter. It's just this doctrine and ideology they follow.
Yeah, it's
blind.
You got to think, if they were any good at all, they wouldn't be sitting in the Scottish Parliament. Yeah.
Aye.
And that's not demeaning our Parliament. We've got a fantastic Parliament. But, anybody in the Tory party that's got any form of skill to their standards would actually be working for the Westminster party.
Yeah. I know. Well, to be fair, Douglas Ross packed up his bag and went to Westminster. Beat Angus Robertson.
I mean, we've done it because we want a good presence down there. I think we have got a well balanced. The SNP have got a well balanced party both in Scottish Parliament and down in Westminster. especially after the 2015 elections, when we had a huge influx of brand new MPs, and that's where they've stayed down there. Douglas Ross is one of these unfortunate people that I often liken Douglas Ross to a Springer Spaniel.
Explain, Cliff.
He just bounces about the place uncontrolled. And only sort of has the meagerest of semblance of sense when his master calls his name.
Oh, I love it. Campbell Guns tweeted, he says he's received a leaflet from the Scots Tories this morning, mentioned Douglas Ross twice, Ruth Davidson once, but had 3 mentions of Nicola Sturgeon, 7 of the SNP, and no less than 13 mentions of India F2. Thanks for the support, Tories.
I think I've seen that leaflet pop up on social media.
Aye.
Yeah, and they're doing a marvellous campaign for us.
They are indeed, because if that's going into people's houses and they see the word independence written all the time, that's going to stick.
Whoever's sorry, I'm losing it now.
I know, it's funny though. It's funny.
Whoever's advising Douglas Ross on his campaign, I think belongs in the SNP.
I know. I mean, there's a guy called Cliff. There's a guy called Andy McKeever. He was a communications manager for the Tories. He wants nothing to do with them these days. He's gone right across the other side. It's amazing.
Well, that shows you how disjointed the Tory party is. Every time someone opens their mouth, you can see the click of more independent supporters coming round.
I know.
What they are saying about how bad, and this again goes back to what's said in the Scottish Parliament, what they are saying about how bad things are in Scotland, well, people on the ground are not seeing that.
Correct.
Yeah. We don't live in a utopia. It's not no nirvana, but we live in a country that has been decently run.
Aye.
Yeah. And for the continual
hammering of us.
Yes, it's the boy that cried wolf.
Well, one of the things I know a lot of people in the health service, just because I've been there and we know them, and what they're saying is every time Ruth Davison or whoever it is, Jackson Carlow before her, goes about the NHS is failing the people of Scotland and blah blah blah, the nurses and the doctors feel that on the chin. They feel that politicians are opposition politicians are doing them a kicking, and they do not like it. They do not like it, Cliff.
Yep. And that more and more they are voicing that in public. Normally, your NHS workers, your doctors, your nurses, your
cleaners, your
ancillary staff, they just get on with their job.
Aye.
Okay, they might have political allegiances, but they don't voice an opinion. But when you get a doctor or a nurse or part of the admin teams, ANSL staff, voicing a political opinion on a social media site, then you need to listen to it. Because they are the people that are day-to-day experiencing what's going on. And then to have that opinion rubbished by some typist sitting in a basement somewhere.
Correct.
Yeah, and you're sitting there giving it. That is absolutely disgusting. They're not prepared to listen to the people that have got the day-to-day experience.
I know. We're running out of time, Cliff. That's another 40 minutes we've been gassing away here. Brilliant. Yeah, I love it.
I did warn you.
But Cliff, it's quality, mate. That's what we're looking for. It's quality on Caledon Radio. That's what we love. There's so many things I've got to get through, but I've got some other news, traffic things to do, Cliff. So we'll have to cut it there, mate. But listen, thanks for coming on here and giving me your opinions and having a good laugh about these the crazy situation we're in just now. Yeah,
Norrie, it's always a pleasure to come on. Thank you very much for giving the veterans a voice, to give us out. Because we've also missed going on the rallies and stuff, and we always ask for, and most of the time we get a slot on the microphone. These things, so it's always great for us veterans to get our voice heard. Just wishing everybody safe few months yet. I also believe we're going to be coming out of the more severe restrictions come the spring once the vaccine kicks in. Yeah.
I think so too. We've got vaccinations coming. Spring's coming, the cold weather will be over. I think we've got something to look forward to, and we've got a May election, and I think that's going to be something to give us a big fillip as well, Cliff.
Absolutely.
Cliff, thanks very much, and we'll catch up soon. We'll get you back on. Don't you worry about that.
Okay, no, cheers.
Cheers, Cliff. Bye now.
All the best.
Bye-bye.